My romance with the star student was finally exposed. My mother went ballistic, demanding an immediate breakup and forcing me to transfer schools. I always assumed she just feared puppy love would ruin my grades, but only on her deathbed did she confess the truth. The real reason she tore us apart was because he was the son of her first love. Years later, I suddenly uncovered the reality of it all. Saying I was shocked is an understatement, yet saying I felt nothing is a lie. Perhaps I was too composed, and seeing that my mother finally let go of her lifelong obsession, she pleaded with me one last time, "If fate ever brings you two back together, promise me you won't let go. I know you suffered for years, and it was all my fault. I was so wrong. I will be watching over you both from heaven." I never intended to look for him again. Those ghosts of the past had faded. I never imagined he would end up as my father's attending surgeon. Outside the operating room, he slowly pulled off his surgical mask, revealing a cold, handsome face both familiar and strange. A voice stripped of its youthful innocence echoed heavily in my ears. "The patient is out of critical danger." My feet felt bolted to the floor, and my breath froze. The doctor who just saved my father was actually Pei Jingxing. In stark contrast to my inner turmoil, he was perfectly composed. "Your father's vital signs are stable, but he needs 24 hours in the intensive care unit. We will run more tests later to find the bleeding source and assess his recovery." His voice was steady and professional, devoid of any emotion as he discussed the follow-up care. "The nurses will give you a detailed briefing." Every gesture he made was clinical. "We once promised to attend medical school together, vowing to save lives side by side. Yet I broke that promise to pursue photography instead." As he turned to brush past me, I couldn't stay silent. My voice cracked as I called out the name I had whispered a million times in my heart. He slowly turned around, his cold, distant gaze landing squarely on me. "Is there anything else?" I parted my lips, desperate to clear the air between us and explain the old misunderstanding. But when my eyes landed on a faint lipstick mark on his collar, the words died in my throat. I looked away and shook my head. "It is nothing. Just thank you for saving my father." A suffocating silence stretched the tension to its limit. Finally, he spoke with icy indifference. "Was there a reason you called me earlier?" My head snapped up in surprise. He actually got my call. A sudden surge of courage flared inside me, longing to bring up our past, but he cut me off immediately. "Do not call me again unless it is an emergency. Our history is awkward, to say the least. Awkward." I let out a hollow laugh, clenching my fists, and agreed. Fine. The things he worried about would never happen anyway. In 1 week, I am moving to New Zealand with my father. The clean air is perfect for his recovery and for my fresh start. Once he got my definitive answer, Pei Jingxing brushed past me without a second glance, like a fleeting gust of wind. Subconsciously, I tugged down my sleeve, desperately hiding the jagged scar on my wrist. That night, slumped by my father's hospital bed, I fell into a nightmare haunted by Pei Jingxing, a memory buried deep for 13 years, one I never dared face again. The dream took me back to the peak of summer. Relentless cicadas buzzed, grating on my nerves after the college entrance exam results were released. Pei Jingxing and I made a pact to submit our college applications together. The next day, we parted at the alley entrance. He headed east, I walked west. I took my usual shortcut through the deserted demolition zone, until a sinister voice behind me shattered the silence. "Pei Jingxing ruined our payday, so it is only fair we have some fun with his girl, right?" I spun around to see 3 thugs looming over me. Pei Jingxing had caught them extorting protection money and called the cops. I ran for my life. They were relentless demons, dragging me into an abandoned house. Afterward, I dragged myself home, broken. That was the day I abandoned my dream of ever becoming a surgeon. I played the fool and surrendered to my mother's demands to cut ties with Pei Jingxing. I feigned ignorance when she posed as me to send that breakup text, pretending I didn't know she hid my phone. In this lifetime, I could never touch a scalpel again. The moment I grip a blade, a dark madness erupts in my mind, a desperate, terrifying urge to slaughter. I wanted to plunge steel into their wretched bodies, pierce their black hearts, and make them pay in blood. Then, a violent thunderclap jolted me awake. A familiar, hazy voice echoed in my ears. "Why did you break up with me back then?" When I finally forced my eyes open, I was drenched in a cold sweat. My clothes clung to my skin. Outside, a torrential downpour lashed the window. A single bedside lamp flickered in the ward, its dim amber glow casting long, distorted shadows. I looked up, breathless, my heart constricting. Pei Jingxing was standing right by the bed. I had not even heard him enter. His usually crisp, professional white coat was rumpled. A strange flush stained his sharp, handsome features. His eyes were clouded, thick with a trace of dazed confusion. "Why did you dump me all those years ago?" he whispered. He repeated the question with a heavy, raspy voice. My throat tightened painfully as bittersweet emotions crashed through me. Suddenly, Pei Jingxing lunged forward, grabbing my wrist in a vice-like grip. The heat radiating from his palm was terrifyingly intense, his fingertips digging in with bruising force, pressing directly against the scar on my wrist. That jagged, raised scar, a sharp, stinging pain flared up, sending a shiver through my body. I tried to wrench my arm away, but his iron grip only tightened. "Pei Jingxing, are you running a fever?" Just then, the ward door swung open, and a woman's gentle voice shattered the suffocating tension in the room. "Pei Jingxing, did you seriously sneak some cheese grapefruit again? How many times do I have to tell you that you are deathly allergic? Even allergy meds won't save you." Cheese grapefruit, a rare hybrid fruit, and my absolute favorite. Back then, I recommended it to him constantly, but he always turned up his nose. Yet here he was, the man refusing to let go of my hand. Seeing the woman approach, he let go, burying his face in her neck while murmuring, "Just hold me." She reached out to steady him, her face etched with worrying. When she looked at me, her eyes were filled with apology. "I am so sorry. I am his girlfriend. He is overworked and accidentally ate something he is allergic to. He is not thinking clearly right now. Did he do anything inappropriate?" I watched his clingy, vulnerable state. Years ago, whenever Pei Jingxing felt hurt, he would bury himself in the crook of my neck just like that, whispering, "Just hold me." Stung by the memory, I shook my head. "No, you should get him back for his medicine and some rest." The woman helped him stand, muttering, "Why do you push yourself so hard? Don't you know someone is at home waiting? You worrying me to death." His congested voice mumbled, "I missed you so much." I remained silent, turning my attention back to my father and the rhythmic pulse of his monitor. A bittersweet smile tugged at my lips, seeing that Pei Jingxing had finally found his happiness. I should be thrilled for him, and with my dad improving, I really ought to be happy. Yet massive raindrops battered the window all night, leaving me in darkness. With heavy circles under my eyes, I watched my father finally open his eyes that morning. Squeezing out the energy to grab hot water for his medicine, I suddenly ran straight into a literal ghost from my past. It was him. Jing Tingmi, old classmate from high school and Pei Jingxin's former college roommate. He was thrilled to see me at first, but after exchanging a few quick words, his face fell as he sighed. "Jing Din has really changed. That car wreck back in high school didn't just derail his life. It completely rewrote who he was." My mind went totally blank. Shocked and utterly confused, I could only choke out, "Car accident." "What car accident?" Genuine disbelief flashed across Jing Ting's face. "You honestly didn't know he crashed his car while racing to find you?" "Yeah, it happened on the exact day we were all submitting our college applications. He said he was going to pick you up, but he had a horrific crash on the way. He barely survived." I froze in my tracks, my ears ringing with a sudden, deafening buzz. I had absolutely no idea because my mother had hidden my phone away. Heavy guilt, heartache, and a profound sense of regret tangled together, crawling up my throat as my eyes stung with the overwhelming urge to cry. I forced a hollow laugh. It's all in the past now. I fought desperately to keep myself together, but my mind was instantly flooded with horrific, vivid images of Pei Jingxin's mangled car wreck. The day after I was brutalized and nearly died, he was fighting for his own life too. I offered a weak smile to a stunned Jing Ting. "It's all over now, right?" I stumbled back to the ward, completely dazed. I couldn't gather my scattered thoughts. My mind kept looping, replaying the sheer horror of his accident. It wasn't until my phone suddenly blared that I snapped out of my daze. It was a frantic call from a close friend. He sounded completely panicked. "My studio was robbed. I'm stuck at the police station right now. Can you please cover for me? I'm in a total bind. The clients need extra wedding shots at the cathedral." I wiped away my tears, telling him to take a deep breath and that I'd handle it. I grabbed the address, rushed home for my gear, and followed his directions to the cathedral, where the two newlyweds were waiting. They were dressed in pure white, standing with their backs to me, hands clasped tightly in prayer. I stepped forward and whispered, "Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm the photographer covering your session today." The moment they turned around, I froze dead in my tracks. It was actually Pei Jingxing. His brow furrowed slightly, and he opened his mouth to speak, but his girlfriend quickly beat him to it. "What a coincidence. Miss Finn, I never expected you to witness our happiness." I quickly averted my eyes. Yeah, quite the coincidence. I desperately forced myself into professional mode, but halfway through the shoot, Pei Jingxing's phone suddenly rang. His face instantly changed as he answered, whispering urgently to his girlfriend, "A critical patient just arrived in the emergency room. I have to get back to the hospital to operate, then go, hurry, be careful on the road." He took off with long, hurried strides, rushing past me like a sudden gust of wind. Before vanishing through the door, his girlfriend turned to me, looking helpless. "That's a surgeon's life, always busy." I forced a tight smile. "Then let's get a few more solo shots of you." She didn't respond. Immediately, the smile on her face slowly faded. "Miss Fan," her tone grew heavy and serious. "I know you and Jingdin have a history, and that there was once something deep between you. Jingdin has had a really rough few years, and I was the one who stayed by him through his darkest days. I can't lose him, and I need him more than anything. So please stay away from him, don't ever show up in his life again. Don't ruin the happiness we've built." I stared at her, my heart aching with a bitter sting, yet I felt strangely calm. I pulled out my phone and showed her my flight details. "My flight to New Zealand is at 10 p.m. tonight. I'm emigrating." Meanwhile, Pei Jingdin swapped back into his white coat at breakneck speed. He sprinted straight for the operating room. The man on the table was clad in a prison uniform, a convict serving his sentence, who had been injured while attempting to escape during a medical parole. A steel rebar had impaled his right wrist, leaving a jagged, gaping wound that was hemorrhaging blood. He calmly asked the nurse, "What's the patient's status?" Having dealt with plenty of difficult patients refusing treatment before, he simply assumed the man was just being combative. But just as the nurse opened her mouth to speak, the patient erupted into another wild fit of hysterics, his voice dripping with pure, teeth-grinding hatred. "Pei Jingxing, stop acting like you don't know who I am. How could you forget me?" The air around Pei Jingxing shifted instantly. His face, once masked in professional detachment, grew tense. His breathing became heavy, and veins began to bulge. A vein pulsed violently against his forehead. Pei Jingxing lunged forward, grabbing the man by his collar with a brutal grip. Every word he spat was drenched in pure fury. "You better tell me right now. Now that you're just spewing lies." The man gasped for air, choked by the tightening grip, his face turning a sickly shade of purple as he struggled to. He twisted his neck with a sneer. "You want to hear it? Fine, I'll say it again. I was furious, so I got the guys together to brutally violate Tinglan. We took turns from sunrise until the dead of night. She kept screaming his name the entire time until her voice gave out. Hearing those words, gang rape felt like a massive sledgehammer slamming into Pei temples, leaving his mind completely blank. Inside his chest, a blinding white void of raw fury and agonizing heartache surged, threatening to tear his sanity to shreds. Pei Jingxing's knuckles turned white as he gripped the collar even tighter. He stared down at the arrogant scumbag with a murderous urge to strangle him. The man was nearly suffocating under the chokehold, yet he still managed to gasp out a challenge. "On her anyway, let me tell you, she spent that whole day screaming your name. And every time I slapped her face, she wailed in such pathetic agony." The nurses stood frozen by the sudden chaos before snapping back to reality. They rushed forward, trying to pry Pei Jingxing's fingers loose. "Dr. Pei, this is the emergency room. We need to start the surgery right now. Can this wait until the operation is over?" "Please, compose yourself." Pei Jingxing froze, forcing his stiff fingers to let go. His hands shook uncontrollably. "Prepare for surgery," he choked out, turning away with great effort to keep his back to the man. His voice sounded deathly raspy. He fought a desperate battle for calm, but the thug's vile words kept looping in his head. His sanity was on a razor's edge, feeling ready to detonate at any second. The criminal began shrieking even louder. "Are you deaf? I don't want him saving me. He hates me. He'll use this surgery to kill me. Don't let that man touch me." Those piercing screams quickly drew the attention of the arriving medical director. He noticed Pei Jingxing's ghostly pale face and the patient thrashing like a madman on the table. The director made an instant executive decision. Dr. Pei, take a break. We're swapping in another surgeon. Pei Jingxing didn't protest, nor did he look back as he left. He stumbled out of the operating room, his legs feeling heavy like lead. The sterile corridor lights were blindingly bright, highlighting his solitary, isolated figure. Growing weaker, he couldn't face the thug's dark revelations. He dreaded looking back at that scorching summer 13 years ago, unable to grasp such a pitch-black, desperate hope. He remembered Tinglan's nightmare with agonizing clarity. The day their exam results came out, he had walked her to the alley's mouth, promising to meet the next morning to submit their applications. They were supposed to attend Capital Medical University together, promising to save lives side by side. He should have walked her all the way to her front door. It was only a few steps. Just because of a minor family emergency, he had left a moment early. Intense waves of regret and self-loathing threatened to drown Pei Jingxing as he stumbled blindly, sprinting out. He raced desperately from the hospital back to the wedding shoot. But by the time he burst onto the scene, the place was deserted. Only a few workers remained, packing up scattered props. Grabbing a worker, his voice shook with urgency. "Please, tell me, where is the photographer who was just here?" The staff member blinked in confusion. "Oh, her. Scarcely 2 minutes after you left, she packed up her gear and left." Pei Jingxing's heart plummeted into a bottomless abyss. Just then, Lin Jiangxi, his fiancée, appeared before him. "She is gone," she said. "She said she is not coming back. She told me to tell you not to bother looking." The icy wind howled through the cavernous cathedral doors, sending violent shivers through his frame. In Pei Jingxing's chest, it felt as if a massive hole had been brutally hollowed out. A hollow, echoing void throbbed with a pain so intense he could barely breathe. He turned around, his movements heavy and defeated. She had left him again, just like 13 years ago, silently, without a trace, granting him no explanation. Lin Jiangxi stepped forward. "Jingxing, the two of you are history. She is starting a new life, and it's time you let go too. We must face reality." Pei Jingxing's eyes trembled. Tears welled in his eyes, his throat feeling physically blocked. After a long silence, he finally choked out, "I was just angry furious she vanished without a word back then. But I never knew she suffered such horrific trauma, or that she was forced into that corner." He couldn't continue, swallowing the burning words as they dissolved into pure remorse. He loathed himself. If he hadn't crashed his car back then, he surely would have uncovered the truth. He wouldn't have lost her for so long, and after waking from that he shouldn't have let his petty pride win. "After the crash, I resented that she never visited me. But she was never cold-hearted. I was supposed to be the one who knew her best." Lin Jiangxi remained silent for a few agonizing seconds. Witnessing his raw suffering, a wave of bitterness surged in her own heart. "You moved back specifically for her. And you waited so long for her return, yet you pushed her away with cold distance. You even dragged me into a scheme to provoke her. You should have seen this coming. You must pay the price for your choices." Pei Jingxing snapped his head up. "Just tell me where she went." Lin Jiangxi averted her eyes, dodging his desperate gaze. Her voice hardened with finality. "You failed her back then, and now are you going to fail me too?" Pei Jingxing choked on his words, his mouth hanging open. In a silent plea, "I have always known your heart never belonged to me." Lin Jiangxi's voice cracked with a sob. "I played along willingly, but I am no saint. I cannot just hand over the man I love on a silver platter." Refusing to look at him, she turned on her heel and bolted from the cathedral, leaving him standing there. He was a hollow, solitary figure. I'm so sorry," he whispered to the empty air, his voice echoing with crushing regret. Then, the hospital called demanding his return. The call snapped Pei Jingxing out of his trance. He scrambled to find the contact number left by Fan Tinglan's father during his stay, dialing it with trembling fingers. Only a cold, mechanical recording answered. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." A thick, suffocating fog settled in his chest, making it hard to breathe. The pressure was unbearable. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, my father and I had already arrived at the airport. Fan Huajing sat stiffly in the terminal chair. He watched me stare blankly at my phone, where a photo of Pei Jingxing's back was displayed. "Tinglan," my dad suddenly spoke up, pulling me out of my thoughts. "All these years, you never truly moved on from him, did you?" I instinctively denied it. "Dad, Why bring this up again? I have told you 100 times already. My father simply shook his head, his eyes overflowing with pity. You are my daughter, how could I not see through you? You did not break up willingly, it was your mother. She took past grudges and forced that heavy burden onto your shoulders. She is the one who wasted your best years. He paused, reaching out to gently pat my hand. Matters of the heart aren't something you can just switch off. If there is a misunderstanding, clear it up. Don't let these shadows haunt your life. My heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, my phone lit up with a WeChat notification. A new friend request popped up. Waiting for the migratory bird has requested to add you as a friend. It's me, Pei Jingxing. I have something to say to that bird who never came home. My heart throbbed frantically, spiraling completely out of control. I had already deactivated my old number. How on earth did he track down my WeChat? The friend request felt like an invisible thread tugging violently at my soul, leaving me paralyzed between staying and leaving. Waiting for the migratory bird, has he truly been waiting for me all this time? I desperately wanted to hit accept to ask if he had been okay. I wanted to tell him about every ounce of my pain and longing. But then, Lin Jiangxi's face flashed in my mind. I remembered Pei Jingxing's imminent wedding. I remembered the future I had resolved to build. Right then, the airport intercom chimed. Attention all passengers, flight MU789 bound for Brooklyn, New Zealand, is now preparing for immediate departure. Please proceed to the boarding gate. Thank you for your cooperation. The announcement shattered my lingering thoughts. I took one final, shaky breath, dimmed the phone screen to black, and gripped my luggage. I stood up, turned to my father, and said, Dad, I used to drown in regret back then, but making this choice today, I know I won't regret it. My father studied my calm profile, his eyes brimming with helpless pity. Fine. You've always been stubborn since you were a kid. Once you set your mind, you never back down. I just want you to be happy. I nodded. I will be. I'm going to work harder than ever to find my happiness. Meanwhile, Pei Jingxing sat in his office, staring fixedly at his glowing screen. He had painstakingly squeezed this WeChat idea out of He Jingting. He had been waiting for an eternity, from the dead of night until dawn. The second he stepped off the operating table, he checked his phone, but the request column remained silent. No acceptance, not even a rejection. A soft knock sounded at the door, and Lin Jiangxi entered, carrying an insulated flask. Jingxing, she said. You haven't eaten a single bite since yesterday. Even an iron body would collapse. I brewed some soup for you. Pei Jingxing remained silent, having absolutely zero appetite. Lin Jiangxi set the flask down on the desk, deep concern etched on her face. Don't forget, we are getting married very soon. Pei Jingxing lifted his head. He looked at her, his eyes clouded with guilt. You know right now, I can't. Lin Jiangxi fought back tears, looking away. I know, even if I forced you. If I ruined this wedding by making a scene, you would never truly love me. I knew that. Back then, when my family tried to force me to marry that 40-year-old CEO, I was the one who begged you to pretend to be my boyfriend. You were kind enough to agree and help, but I never expected to actually fall in love. Pei Jingxing looked at her, utterly exhausted. I'm sorry. All these years, his heart had belonged only to Fan Tinglan. Suddenly, his phone buzzed sharply on the desk, and he snatched it up instantly, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. But reading the actual message ruthlessly crushed that spark. It was a text from He Jingting. Jingxing, I just confirmed this with Tinglan's aunt. She and her father boarded flight MU789 late last night, heading straight for New Zealand. Suddenly, Lin Jiangxi lunged and grabbed his phone. Jingxing, stop pitying me, you know an apology isn't what I want. You could have rejected me honestly, or kept pretending this was real, anything but this endless stream of excuses. I don't need your damn apologies. Pei Jingxing stared at her tear-filled, red eyes, his guilt feeling like a crushing weight. Yet, he found himself utterly speechless, allowing a suffocating silence to envelop them both. Suddenly, the office television blared with a breaking news bulletin, shattering the heavy quiet. We interrupt this program for an urgent news flash. At 10 p.m. last night, a passenger plane, flight MU789 bound for Auckland, New Zealand, crashed into the South Pacific at 7:06 a.m. this morning. There are currently no reports of survivors among the passengers. The cause of this aviation tragedy is under investigation by authorities. Pei Jingxing bolted upright, his eyes glued to the flickering television screen, his body trembling uncontrollably. His sudden, violent reaction startled Lin Jiangxi, making her jump. What happened? What's wrong? Pei Jingxing whipped his head toward her, pointing at the screen as he struggled to find his voice. Just now, what did the anchor say? I had to have misheard it, right? Lin Jiangxi paused in confusion, then repeated the grim update. With a look of deep pity, she added, the plane crashed. The chances of anyone surviving are basically zero. Pei Jingxing felt as though he had been plunged into a freezing abyss. An icy dread crept from his feet through his entire body, paralyzing him. Instinctively, he bolted out of the ward, gasping, "No, this can't be happening. I haven't even had the chance to explain everything to her, or tell her how sorry I am. How could fate be this cruel?" Lin Jiangxi moved to chase him, but as she dropped her phone, her eyes caught the screen. Her pupils dilated in pure shock, and she froze, completely paralyzed. By the time she snapped out of it and rushed into the hallway, she saw Pei Jingxing collapse onto the tiles, scramble back up, and keep running. It was a heartbreaking sight. Pei Jingxing burst out of the hospital doors. A torrential downpour had begun, and the freezing rain instantly soaked him to the bone, drenching his white coat. But he was oblivious to the cold, obsessively redialing that same number over and over again, one that had long been disconnected. "Tinglan, please no, this can't be real." Suddenly, the world went black, and he collapsed into the rain. When he finally regained consciousness, Pei Jingxing was lying in a sterile hospital bed, an IV drip running into his hand, feeling utterly drained. Lin Jiangxi was keeping watch by his side, her eyes bloodshot. She clearly hadn't slept a wink. The second his eyes opened, he struggled violently to sit up. Lin Jiangxi quickly pinned him down. "You need to stay put and rest. Your body has reached its breaking point. The hospital already gave you 2 days of leave." Pei Jingxing panicked. "I have to get to New Zealand. Going there won't change anything," Lin Jiangxi cried in desperation. Pei Jingxing's voice trembled with agony. "I have to go to New Zealand. I have to bring her back home." Lin Jiangxi's voice began to quiver. "The government confirmed there are no survivors. Since it was an international flight, authorities are handling everything. Besides, you aren't even her family, so you have no legal standing." That single phrase, "you aren't her family," instantly paralyzed Pei Jingxing on the hospital bed. Lin Jiangxi witnessed his hollow, broken expression, and her heart was consumed by crushing guilt. She remained silent for a few heavy seconds, her voice cracking as she choked out, "Jingxing, the truth is, I'm suffering too. I failed her. I'm so sorry. That day at the cathedral, I was the one who told her to leave. I told her to disappear, go as far away as possible, and never show her face again." Pei Jingxing's breathing hitched, freezing in his chest. He didn't explode in rage or hurl accusations. He didn't even look at her. He simply spoke in a low, hollow tone. "Get out. The wedding is cancelled. I'll handle your family and explain everything. I'll take all the blame." Lin Jiangxi stood there, utterly stunned. She would have preferred him to scream or curse her name. She would have accepted it all. But his icy indifference was what finally drove her to absolute despair. No matter how much she pleaded, Pei Jingxing ignored her existence entirely. She had no choice but to walk away, leaving the ward in a deathly, suffocating silence. Pei Jingxing obsessively refreshed the crash news. Each headline sliced like a blade into his bleeding heart. Every report confirmed the exact same thing. A devastating crash, 0 survivors, followed by the empty condolences of strangers. Tears fell silently down his face. His phone slipped from his weak grasp, but accidentally triggered the dialer. The ringing sound of the connection echoed clearly through the quiet room. Startled, Pei Jingxing picked the phone back up. It was Fan Tinglan's old high school number. He instinctively went to end the call, but suddenly the line picked up. "Hello, who is this? Are you calling about Tinglan? My father didn't feel well last night, so we missed the flight. We're both perfectly safe and sound." Pei Jingxing's phone slipped from his hand, hitting the floor with a thud. Tears finally broke through all restraint. The overwhelming joy of her narrow escape rushed to his head. Ignoring the frantic questioning from the other end, a single, consuming thought took over his entire mind. Nothing else mattered anymore. Pei Jingxing violently ripped the IV line from his hand, blood seeping from the puncture. Yet, he was utterly oblivious to the pain. "Dr. Pei, what are you doing? You haven't recovered. The director ordered you to rest." Startled by the noise, the nurse rushed inside to stop him. Pei Jingxing patted her shoulder. I'm fine. Tinglan is still alive, she's really alive, and I have to go see her right now. His voice was thick with desperate urgency as he gently brushed the nurse aside and sprinted out of the hospital. Tinglan didn't die, she actually survived. Thank God she was still here. On the other side, I was comforting my father. Once he fell asleep, I quietly retreated from the room. His emotional breakdown had been so sudden. 1 second he was fine, and the next, right as we boarded the plane, he completely lost it, screaming to see my mother. Fearing an in-flight emergency, airport staff denied us entry to the cabin. I didn't push it, I just took my father back home. Once we were in familiar surroundings, his agitation slowly began to dissolve, and a faint smile even returned to his face. Looking at him, the truth finally clicked. My dad truly didn't want to leave. Perhaps my original decision had been far too impulsive. I chose New Zealand for him without asking, thinking fresh air was the cure. But his heart belonged here, so I decided to stay home just a little bit longer. I wanted to be there for him. Andy, we are out of vinegar. I am running downstairs to grab a bottle. I called out, stepped outside, and found the streets still as familiar as ever. New buds sprouted on the sycamores, while dappled sunlight filtered through the leaves, painting the pavement. But inside, my heart was a complete chaotic mess. After all the crazy twists and turns, I still have not left. Since becoming a travel vlogger, I have cut off the world, burying the old promises I once made with Jingxing. Staring at the strawberry yogurt drink sitting next to the vinegar, my high school memories suddenly flooded back. I could clearly picture him buying my favorite flavor. Here, this is for you. My hand hovered over the bottle before pulling away. It is in the past. Grabbed the vinegar and pulled out my phone to pay. My screen was still stuck on Pei Jingxing's pending friend request. I stared at it for a couple of seconds before closing the app. He is getting married. He has his own life now, and I need to let the past go too. No more drama between us. Stepping outside the store, a light drizzle began to fall, coating my face with a cool, gentle mist. It was not heavy, and I did not want to wait around. Clutching the bottle, I braced myself to run home. But the moment I stepped off the stairs, someone grabbed me in a tight, desperate embrace. The grip was fierce and shaking. I instinctively raised the vinegar bottle, ready to strike. Who are you? Let go of me or I am calling the police. My arm froze midair the second I saw his face, leaving me completely paralyzed. It was Pei Jingxing. Tinglan, he rasped, holding onto me like his life depended on it. You are okay. You are actually safe. Thank God. Though it had only been a single day, he looked like he had aged a decade. Stubble covered his chin, and his bloodshot eyes looked terrifying. A deep, uncheckable exhaustion radiated from him. Stunned, my voice trembled as I asked, Pei Jingxing, what are you doing here? The words had barely escaped my lips when his wedding and Lin Jiangxi's face flashed in my mind. I immediately used all my strength to shove him away. He was already so weak, and my push sent him stumbling back, nearly falling onto the pavement. He stood there, staring at me with a desperate, burning gaze, as if I might vanish into thin air. Tinglan, he sobbed, his eyes filled with guilt and pain. I know everything now. I finally know the whole truth. I know why we broke up, and the trauma you went through. I know you have been carrying this heavy burden all alone. My heart jolted painfully, like it was pierced by a blade. The vinegar bottle nearly slipped from my hand. How did he find out? I looked at his remorseful face, and frowned. It is in the past, Pei Jingxing. I did not know about your car accident either. We are even now. We will never be even, he sobbed, shaking his head. Pure regret filled his voice as he stepped closer to me. If only I had not provoked those thugs that night and walked you all the way to your door. If I had been there, you would not have faced that nightmare alone. You would not have been forced to live in agony all these years. His words hit me like a sledgehammer, shattering the walls around my heart. I gripped the bottle until my knuckles turned white. Fighting back a tidal wave of emotion, I shook my head. No, Pei Jingxing. You are not wrong, and neither was I. My voice was a faint whisper. Neither of us is to blame. It was just a cruel twist of fate. Where we are now, this is the best ending we have. I looked away and tried to step past him. But before I could, he grabbed my wrist in a tight, desperate grip. Do not abandon me again, Tinglan. Please do not walk out on me again. His voice was a desperate, begging plea. My heart throbbed with pain, and I violently yanked my hand away. I turned to run, but he suddenly collapsed with a heavy thud, passing out right on the pavement. I froze in absolute, terrifying shock, unable to move him. I scrambled to call an ambulance, watching them wheel him into the emergency room. My chest tightened. Turning around, I ran into Lin Jiangxi. She froze when she saw me, followed by a heavy, suffocating silence. "I am just glad you are okay," she whispered. "Now Jingxing can finally have peace." I frowned. I stayed silent, watching her guardedly. Lin Jiangxi looked back at me with hollow, exhausted eyes, her voice cracking with a sob. "I have always known his heart belongs to you. There was never room for me. I was just begging him to stay, forcing him to play the role of my boyfriend just to escape an arranged marriage. You are the only one he has ever loved." My heart shattered again, the tangled emotions in my chest becoming unbearable. She broke down in tears, crying, "But since you are alive, can you just disappear from his life again? A month ago, late at night, I got him drunk, and now I am pregnant. I cannot live without him." My heart froze, the world turning cold and clear. I stared at her, my throat feeling heavy, completely at a loss for words. In the past, I might have agreed without a second thought. But not this time. "Lin Jiangxi," I said flatly, "you need to understand something. Jingxing and I have not spoken for years because I wanted to cut ties forever. It never once crossed my mind to force my way back into his life, let alone compete with you." I paused, looking at her with a mix of pity and resolve, but I refused to sugarcoat the harsh truth. A relationship is not something you should beg for by lowering yourself. Pinning your hopes on a man who does not love you will only destroy you. Acting like this just makes you look pathetic. With those final words, I turned my back on her shocked face and walked away. I had wanted to wait for Jingxing to wake up, but there was no point now. I used to think Lin Jiangxi was smart and level-headed, but I never expected her to weaponize schemes in the name of love. That perception was shattered, but after a few steps, she came charging after me, grabbing my wrist in a desperate grip. She snarled, "Fong Tinglan, you feel pretty smug, don't you? But do you know how dark his life was when we're gone? It was a soul-crushing existence. Constant studying, totally isolated. I was the one who stayed by his side and helped him through those dark years." She had dropped all her pretenses. She was cornered, desperate, and terrified of losing him, because outside of Pei Jingxing, she had nothing. She knew she would never find another man who could make her heart race like Pei Crossing, even if his heart was empty for her. Yet, he still brought her food in his spare moments. She knew she shouldn't catch feelings, that it was all just an act, but she had fallen anyway. I gently pried her hand off me and stared her down. "You clearly didn't understand a word I said. I have zero interest in fighting you, but that doesn't mean you'll ever truly have him. You claim to be pregnant, but we both know it's just another trap. Even if you use that child to trap his body, you'll never imprison his heart." After delivering my final word, I turned on my heel and walked out of the hospital, leaving Lin Jiangxi standing frozen in place. When I got back home, Dad was already awake, sitting quietly in the living room. He was gently tracing the lines of Mom's portrait. Seeing me walk through the door, he set the photo aside and teased, "What took you so long just to buy vinegar? Did you run to the next town for it?" Looking at his warm smile, the dark cloud in my heart finally began to lift. I forced a smile and played along. "Yeah, I got totally lost in the grocery store." Dad gestured toward the portrait, his voice thick with nostalgia. "Look at your mother. She was so breathtaking when she was young. Her smile brought so much light." I looked at the picture. The young version of Mom had a wild, carefree smile, and eyes that sparkled with life. But later, when she found out I was with Pei Crossing, she became a completely different persona, hollow shell consumed by rage and sorrow. That was the real reason I ran away. "Dad," I hesitated for a long moment before letting the question slip, "why do you still love Mom so much after everything?" My father fell silent, his eyes softening with a tender warmth. "I suppose when you fall for someone in your youth, you can't just erase them from your soul." He paused, reached out to open the back of the picture frame, and pulled out an old letter. "Your mother kept this hidden all these years. It's a message Pei Crossing wrote for you." My breath caught in my throat as I reached out to take the envelope. The paper was yellowed and brittle, its edges frayed and worn thin by time. The ink on the cover had faded, yet the handwriting remained unmistakable to my little migratory bird. It was Pei Jingxing's script from high school, elegant and bold, carrying the raw passion of a young man. My fingertips traced the ink, as if I could still feel his desperation and warmth when he wrote those words. Your mother only confessed to hiding this on her deathbed. I've wanted to give it to you for so long, but my mind started playing tricks on me and I forgot. On me, and the memory only just came back. My father's voice drifted through the room, heavy with regret and helplessness. Your mother kept this buried for 13 long years. After you vanished, Pei Jingxing came looking for you constantly, but she slammed the door in his face. I wanted so badly to reach out and tell you the truth about everything, but your mother snatched my phone away every time. She told me I'd ruin your future if I interfered, and forbade me from ever saying his name. Back then, things were so toxic between you two that I didn't dare speak up. I was terrified of starting another war. I gripped the letter until my knuckles turned white, my vision blurring as tears filled my eyes. I slowly, carefully opened the envelope. My movements were agonizingly gentle, as if the slightest pressure would shatter this message that arrived 13 years too late. The handwriting on the paper was frantic and rushed. It was painfully obvious he was in a total panic. In several spots, the ink had even bled and smudged from his tears. Tinglan, hearing that you're breaking up with me has completely blindsided me, and my heart is absolutely shattered. Didn't we promise each other that after the exams we'd submit our college applications together? That we'd head to the medical university in the capital, dedicating our lives to healing and staying by each other's side until the very end. I refuse to believe you'd just throw it all away and abandon our sacred oath. I won't believe you'd just walk out. Is there something you're not telling me? Is it your mother? Does she refuse to let us be together? Or did I screw up and make you angry? Tinglan, whatever the reason, please just talk to me. We can face this together. Don't try to shoulder this burden alone. Please don't shut me out. I will wait for you. I'll wait for an eternity, no matter how long it takes, no matter where you are hiding. I'll be right here waiting for you, waiting for your return, waiting for an explanation so we can fulfill our promise. If you ever receive this letter, please send me even a single message. Just one word would mean everything. I can't reach you and I'm losing my mind with worrying. It was signed with his name. The final few sentences were written in a frantic scrawl, with characters completely smudged by his tears. My eyes burned as I read, and I let out a soft, shaky sob. My father placed a hand on my shoulder to console me. Tinglan, your mother and I failed you. Knowing what you went through back then, we are both drowning in guilt. I brushed away the tears, forcing myself to keep it together. It's all in the past. I repeated that to myself like a mantra. It was supposed to be over, even if I now knew how much we'd lost. Dwelling on it was pointless, but my father gripped my shoulders firmly, forcing me to look him in the eye. Tinglan, don't make the same mistake your mother did. I froze in confusion. Dad, my father spoke with quiet, earnest conviction. You can't just suppress your feelings. It never works. She thought that by blocking you and Pei Jingxing, she could erase her past, just like you pretend you've forgotten him, when your heart is still overflowing with him. His words felt like a sharp needle stabbing into my chest when I least expected it. I was speechless, caught in a whirlwind of raw emotion. Finally, I tried to brush it off with a clumsy excuse. Dad, stop talking nonsense. I avoided his gaze, clutching the letter tightly in my trembling fist. The sharp paper dug painfully into my palm. Right now, your health is my only priority. Nothing else matters, so please don't bring him up ever again. Dad gave me a knowing, heavy look, but chose not to push me further. He let out a weary sigh. As long as you're happy. That letter, 13 years overdue, felt like it was burning my hand. I stood there, my mind a chaotic, tangled mess. I lectured myself like a mantra. Stop letting yourself get entangled with Pei Jingxing. The mischances and regrets are ancient history. No amount of nostalgia can rewrite the past. Yet, a defiant voice deep inside me kept screaming back. I couldn't stay indifferent, no matter how hard I tried. Just then, my aunt walked in carrying a basket of fresh produce. Tinglan, Dr. Pei is standing right downstairs waiting for you. Go see him, the poor man is getting soaked in the rain. Her voice snapped me out of my trance. My heart skipped a violent beat, and I instinctively bolted for the front door, my legs moving faster than my brain could process. But right before crossing the threshold, I forced my heavy footsteps to slow. I commanded myself to regain some composure. Even though I was clutching the letter in my pocket tightly, I smoothed my clothes, put on a mask of cold indifference, and slowly pulled open the door. Outside, the rain fell relentlessly, weaving a dense gray web that blurred the horizon, as if the entire world was swallowed by the gloom. Pei Jingxing was standing right there. He stood at the building entrance, soaked to the skin and shivering from the cold. His face was a ghostly, papery pale, his lips a sickly shade of blue, looking as if he were right on the verge of collapsing. I frowned at him. "Dr. Pei, you are clearly sick, so why aren't you resting? Is there something you need from me? If you pass out on my doorstep, I'm not a doctor and I won't be able to save you." The words had barely left my mouth when regret hit me. Seeing him standing there, so fragile, made all my calculated coldness and fake bravado suddenly feel hollow and cruel. Pei Jingxing's gaze locked onto mine, his eyes burning with a terrifying intensity. He struggled to part his parched lips, his voice a jagged, raspy whisper. "Tinglan, all these years, I never managed to forget you. When you finally returned, I was genuinely overjoyed, so exhilarated that I couldn't even close my eyes at night. Hearing you were still single made my heart soar even higher." That tiny spark of hope I'd suppressed for 13 long years suddenly flickered back to life. But every time I laid eyes on you, I was haunted by your sudden disappearance back then. I remember the agony of never receiving your message, and the despair of waking up from that car crash only to find you were nowhere to be found. I was consumed by rage, furious at your cold-heartedness, and resentful that you'd seemingly tossed our sacred oath aside. His voice gradually trailed off into a whisper, his eyes bloodshot and weary, his tone a desperate mix of obsession and longing. "But more than anything, I just want to be with you." His raw honesty left me completely speechless. It felt as if a heavy lump were lodged in my throat. I averted my gaze, unable to face the intensity in his eyes. "Dr. Pei, I have no desire to discuss this. If this is the only reason you've come here, then I'll have to ask you to leave." Pei Jingxing froze, the light in his eyes instantly fading like a snuff flame. A profound aura of loneliness began to radiate from him. Just then, my father stepped out of the house. "Dr. Pei, come inside and talk. Why are you standing out there in the pouring rain? Keep this up, and your health will completely deteriorate." Before I could even object, a familiar voice echoed from the stairwell. "Uncle, I heard you and Tinglan were safe. I brought some things to check on you." That was such a terrifying close call. I turned as Pei Jingxing approached with quick strides, a warm smile on his face. But the moment his eyes landed on Pei Jingxing standing beside me, he visibly froze. "Jingxing, what are you doing here?" Pei Jingxing looked just as shocked. Caught directly between the two of them, I was completely paralyzed by a wave of pure awkwardness, leaving me no choice but to look away. I avoided their intense gazes, my mind a chaotic mess, desperately wishing the ground would open up and swallow me whole. On one side was the past I was trying to run from, and on the other was the man my aunt was set on matchmaking me with. This agonizing standoff made my skin crawl with discomfort. My aunt stepped out right at that moment, spotting Jingxing in the hall. Her face instantly lit up. Pei Jingxing stood rooted to the spot in heavy silence for a long moment before finally choosing to give up. He spoke up, "Uncle, I have some urgent matters to attend to, so I won't stay and intrude on your evening." As Pei Jingxing reached the threshold, his footsteps faltered. He turned around agonizingly slowly, his gaze locking onto me with laser-like focus. "Tinglan, I'm not trying to corner you. I know your heart is still guarded by reservations and buried under years of resentment. But I will wait for you. I will wait forever until the day you're ready to let go of the past, until you're willing to hear me out, and until you're ready to give me one final chance." His gaze was far too sincere, too searingly intense, making it nearly impossible to look him in the eye. I gripped the letter in my pocket until my knuckles turned white, forcing myself to tear my eyes away. "That won't be necessary, Dr. Pei. There is absolutely nothing left for us to discuss." He had Lin Junxi, and a wedding that was literally days away. I couldn't afford to harbor even a shred of delusion. Some mistakes, once made, can never be rectified. Rather than drowning in this toxic entanglement, it was better to just let go and find. Pei Jingxing didn't utter another single word. He simply turned and vanished into the thick curtain of rain, his silhouette appearing utterly desolate and lonely, gradually dissolving until he vanished from my sight. In that instant, I felt as if a piece of my soul had been hollowed out, a piercing ache that left me struggling for air. That evening, while I was keeping my father company, his face suddenly turned a ghostly ashen white, as violent tremors racked his entire body. Panic surged through me, shattering my composure instantly. Once we reached the hospital, the medical team rushed my father into emergency resuscitation. I stood paralyzed outside the operating theater, my heart hammering frantically against my ribs. Before long, a doctor emerged with a grim expression. The patient has suffered a sudden, severe relapse, and his current condition is critical. We need to proceed with advanced intervention immediately. My heart leapt into my throat with sheer terror. Then treat him now, please, do whatever it takes. The doctor hesitated before continuing. Comrade Van Huagen's complex case has always been managed exclusively by Dr. Pei. He possesses the deepest understanding of the patient's history. However, Dr. Pei is currently on emergency leave, and we haven't been able to establish contact with him. We have, of course, summoned the other specialists, and they are all currently on their way. Hearing Pei Jingxing's name once again, I froze in a momentary daze. Unreachable. From what I had observed over the past few days, Pei Jingxing was practically on call 24/7. He was indeed the primary anchor for my father's recovery. My father's life was hanging by that thread and couldn't wait. With him there, the response would be far more decisive. I didn't hesitate for a single second. Keep coordinating with the other doctors. I'm going to track him down myself right now. Pei Jingxing's residence was only a few kilometers away, not a long distance at all. I sprinted the entire way to his apartment building, pounding on his door for what felt like ages, but no one answered. I dialed his number repeatedly, but it just rang into a void. I was frantic, pacing like a trapped animal. Just as I raised my fist to strike the door one more time, it suddenly creaked open. Lin Jian stood there, framed in the doorway, her expression chilling. "What are you doing here?" I didn't have a moment to waste on her nonsense. My father's condition has taken a turn for the worse. I need Pei Jingxing to save his life. Where is he? At a critical moment like this, I naturally exaggerated the severity to the absolute limit. Lin Jiangxi's voice remained icy. "He isn't here. Go find someone else. He can't help you." I peered at the glowing lights inside the house, catching the sound of movement from within. Panic flared in my chest, more urgent than ever. Ignoring all social niceties, I violently shoved Lin Jianch aside and stormed straight into the apartment. Pei Jingxing, where are you?" But the moment I burst into the living room and saw the scene, my entire body froze in sheer horror. Pei Jingxing was slumped on the sofa, fresh blood from his wrist dripping slowly down a blade. "What the hell are you doing? Have you lost your mind?" I was paralyzed for 2 seconds, then I lunged toward him. I snatched the fruit knife from his grip and hurled it across the floor. When Pei Jingxing finally looked at me, his eyes flickered with a hazy, dazed confusion. "Tinglan, are you actually looking for me? I'm not hallucinating, am I? You really came." His mind was completely shattered, his eyes vacant and hollow. Staring at the blood steadily dripping from his slashed wrist, my heart felt like it was being twisted in a painful vice. "How could you let yourself end up like this?" Pei Jingxing shook his head slowly, his desperate eyes locking onto mine. "I did nothing," he whispered. "Just seeing you here makes me so happy. It's true, as long as I can see your face." I fell silent, staring at the tragic wreck of a man before me. Bitter agony flooded my chest, and I suddenly remembered that night in the hospital ward when he grabbed my hand, begging to know why I left him. He was in the exact same unstable state back then, his eyes clouded and chaotic. Suddenly, Lin Jiangxi burst into the room behind me. Gasping at the bloody scene, she scrambled forward to bandage his wrist, crying hysterically. "Thank God, the cut isn't deep, it missed the artery." "Why would you do this, Pei Jingxing? Just because you won't be with me? Do you have to hurt yourself like this, just to make me drown in regret?" I watched Lin Jiangxi completely break down, then turned back to the ruined shell of a man before me. I had to know what was wrong with him. Lin Jiangxi shot me a freezing, hateful glare. "This is all your fault, Van Tinglan, every single bit of it. Ever since that horrible crash years ago, his mind has been a total mess. He is plagued by constant insomnia, crippling anxiety, and even suffers from terrifying hallucinations. He has to survive on heavy medication just to keep his sanity. He is allergic to the cheese and snacks you love, yet he forces himself to eat them. Every time, he breaks out in hives and suffers in agony, just because they were your favorite and he just wanted to taste the things you loved, desperate to memorize the flavors that defined you. Lin Jiangxi's words felt like serrated daggers plunging deep into my heart. He spent years rotting in the shadow of your memory, praying you would return, while cursing the way you vanished without a word. He is slowly dying in this cycle of pain and barely surviving day by day. I felt like my heart was being ripped from my chest, the pain choking me. With trembling fingers, I gently stroked Pei Jingxing's hair. Why didn't you say anything? How could you be so foolish? None of this was your fault, I swear. I was the one who failed us. I was a coward, too weak to tell you the truth about what happened. Lin Jiangxi looked away, her spirit crushed. Perhaps from sheer exhaustion, or because he heard my voice, Pei Jingxing slumped into my arms and drifted into a deep sleep. At that exact moment, my phone began to vibrate violently. It was the hospital, and the doctor's voice was noticeably calmer. Miss Fan, the new specialists have arrived. Take a deep breath. Your father's condition has taken a turn for the better and stabilized. After I hung up, my aunt texted, Tinglan, it's late now. Don't risk driving back to the hospital. It's not safe. I'm right here with your father, so don't worry. But I didn't leave as she suggested. Instead, I stayed right by Jingxing's side, watching over him like a guardian. Staring at the jagged bandage on his wrist, guilt and heartache crushed my soul. As the night deepened, Pei Jingxing remained submerged in sleep, his lips trembling with a constant stream of feverish whispers. Tinglan, I'm so sorry. I failed to protect you. I would give anything to go back, I swear. I would never leave you to face it alone. I would never let you suffer through so much misery by yourself. His unconscious pleas felt like a blunt blade hacking away at my heart. I reached out, tenderly tracing his face, whispering a silent confession. Pei Jingxing, I'm the one who's sorry. I got here way too late. I'm sorry I made you wait for such an eternity. Suddenly, Lin Jiangxi approached, placing a heavy hand on my shoulder. Fan Tinglan, there are things you need to know. Let's step outside. I followed her out to the balcony. The heavy rain had stopped, leaving only a few faint, flickering stars in the dark sky. The cool night breeze carried a sharp, biting chill, clearing my chaotic thoughts. Lin Jiangxi leaned against the railing, letting a heavy silence pass before she spoke. Jingxing and I first met in college. Back then, he was like a ghost, completely silent and withdrawn. He didn't talk to anyone. His entire existence revolved around classes, burying himself in the library and labs. My breath hitched. I could never have pictured Pei Jingxing being so broken. It took me a massive amount of time just to get him to talk to me, and it was all because of one single sentence. I looked up. What sentence? Lin Jiangxi gave a bitter smile. I want to save lives and become a great doctor. My eyes shook with sudden realization. Those were the exact words I always used to tell him. The moment he heard them, it was the first time he opened up to me. After graduation, my family tried to force me into a marriage, a blind date with a CEO in his late 40s. I fought back, but stood no chance against them. Backed into a corner, I begged Jingxing for help. He refused at first, but I threatened my own life to force his hand. He wavered, and finally gave in. I spent years following him like a shadow, watching him survive one brutal day at a time. I saw him bury himself in work to erase your memory, throwing his entire soul into it. I remember once, he hadn't slept for 3 straight days and nights. After performing a surgery that lasted over 10 hours, he collapsed in the operating room. It took a terrifyingly long time for him to wake up. They said extreme exhaustion and years of deep emotional suppression finally broke his body. Lin Jiangxi's words hit me like a series of heavy blows, each crushing a piece of my heart. My soul shuddered with every word as fresh tears flooded my eyes. For my sake, he endured a level of pain I couldn't even fathom. I had always played the victim, thinking I was the only one suffering from regret, never realizing his burden was far heavier than mine, his quiet torment so much more excruciating. He told me everything about you, she continued. He said you were the only woman he'd ever love, and he'd wait for you until his last breath. Lin Jiangxi turned her head to face me, her eyes filled with bitter sorrow. Every memory I had tried to bury came rushing back to the surface. Lin Jiangxi looked at me and let out a hollow laugh. Who wouldn't want to marry a man like him? Who wouldn't crave his tenderness and devotion? But deep down, I always knew the truth. There is absolutely no place for me in his heart. No matter how many lies I tell, how much I manipulate him, Or how many times I demand that Ulave can never change his feelings. Our tragic story was written in stone from the very start. I was just too bitter to let go, angry that after devoting so many years to him, I still couldn't find a way into his heart. True love isn't about possession, it's about wanting them to be happy. Lin Jiangxi's voice was hollow, filled with a sudden sense of release. He never had any intention of marrying me. I froze, completely blindsided. I instinctively blurted out, but the wedding photos. The announcements that you were having a ceremony. Lin Jiangxi shook her head slowly. That was just an elaborate show to provoke you, and a lie he used to deceive himself. Even my claim about being pregnant, that was nothing but a lie. Lin Jiangxi's voice carried a sharp edge of self-ridicule. I was just so terrified of losing him, so desperate to keep him by my side, that I made up those lies just to force you to leave. Turning toward the dark night sky, tears silently streamed down my face. I couldn't hold it back anymore and began to pour out my hidden past to her. Lin Jiangxi listened in a heavy, respectful silence, her face softening with pity. I suppose I finally understand why fate never let me be the one beside him. You two are just star-crossed lovers. After surviving so much trauma, wasting precious years apart, and carrying such an immense weight of grief and pain, you really do deserve to be together. I managed a faint, fragile smile. In that moment, I couldn't find a single word to argue. The heavy doubts that paralyzed me for years vanished into the night air like mist. My heart finally went quiet. I had made my decision. I slipped back into the living room, where Pei Jingxing was still trapped in a restless sleep. I walked over, looking down at his face, etched with exhaustion and dark circles. I couldn't look away. For all those lonely years, I had forced myself to run from him, but now that I was finally close enough to touch him, I realized he was forever branded on my soul. I reached out, gently pressing my hand against his feverish forehead. A burning heat radiated against my fingertips. Pei Jingxing, why are you such a fool? Why did you torture yourself like this? Suddenly, he shifted, his hand reaching out instinctively to entwine his fingers with my other hand. You are the fool, he whispered softly. I froze and looked at him. Pei Jingxing had opened his eyes, a glimmer of clarity finally returning to his gaze. As our eyes locked in the dim light, he gently traced the jagged scar on my wrist. Did it hurt terribly? Was the pain unbearable back then? Was it agonizing, deciding to let me go? I didn't do this today just to end it all. I just felt that without you in my world, my existence had lost all purpose. I tried so hard to give up on us, to force myself to erase you, but I couldn't go through with it. You're still rooted in my soul, and I just couldn't bring myself to leave you behind. I couldn't abandon and the ghost of everything we had. Why did you hide the truth from me? Why choose to stand alone, carrying all that misery by yourself? Were you afraid I would look down on you? Did you fear I would stop loving you because of what happened? The raw vulnerability in his voice made me crumble, his burning touch igniting a fire deep inside my frozen heart. 13 years of buried agony and longing surged up. I couldn't hold it back anymore and burst into tears. Shaking my head, my voice cracked. I was just a kid back then. It felt like my entire world had collapsed. I felt tainted, like I was no longer pure or worthy of you. I didn't think I could even survive another day, so I didn't want to drag you down. I didn't want you facing the world's cruelty because of me, or suffering through that hell beside me. Choking back a sob, Pei Jingxing pulled me in, holding me tight, as if trying to merge me into his very soul. You idiot, how could you ever think you weren't enough for me? In my heart, you will always be that pure, kind, and radiant Tinglan I fell in love with. You are the only one I hold dearer than life itself. Tinglan, I wanted you to lean on me forever, to dump all your pain and misery on my shoulders than watch you carry it all alone. I never wanted you to hide and cry in secret, or push me away. Tinglan, can you promise to stop being so foolish? Can you stop trying to endure everything alone? Can you finally just let me stay by your side? I collapsed against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat, while feeling the burning heat of his feverish skin. The pain and trauma I had buried deep inside finally found a desperate release. In that moment, I forced a fragile smile through my tears, even as my tears fell faster. You're a fool too, an even bigger idiot than me. We're both completely hopeless, and that is why we lost so many precious years and wasted so much of our lives apart. Pei Jingxing squeezed my hand with desperate strength, pressing his forehead firmly against mine. I know. God, I know it all now. I know you still love me, that you never truly let me go. From the very second you returned to this city and our eyes met in that hospital hallway, from that exact moment, I knew your heart still belonged to me, Tinglan. I know you better than anyone. How could I not see you suffering in silence? How could I miss the longing in your eyes? I was completely speechless, able only to cling to him while crying out years of resentment, regret, and the crushing weight of missing him. Pei Jingxing just held me in a tight, protective grip. After crying for what felt like an eternity, my breathing finally calmed. He gazed into my swollen, bloodshot eyes, his expression overflowing with raw devotion and pity. He reached out tenderly, wiping the tear stains from my cheeks. I looked back at him, a laugh breaking through my sobs. Jingxing, you're saying all this dramatic stuff just to get a fresh start, don't you? Well, let me tell you, it won't be that easy. Pei Jingxing stared at me, a warm spark of joy instantly dancing in his eyes. Of course not. I know that I owe you a lifetime of debt. I won't beg for immediate forgiveness, but I will spend every single day making it up to you. I will win you back, no matter how long it takes. I am more than willing to wait. Looking into his soulful eyes, a long-lost warmth finally flooded my heart. Then you had better be on your best behavior. If you mess up once more, don't expect a shred of forgiveness from me. Pei Jingxing nodded with absolute conviction, squeezing my hand tightly. I will, I swear I will. I will never let another ounce of pain touch you, and I will never let you leave again. In the dead of night, Pei Jingxing drifted back to sleep, resting deeply and completely at peace, the tension finally fading from his brow. I stayed by his side like a silent guardian, watching him. It wasn't until the first gray light of dawn that I quietly slipped out of his apartment. I knew deep down I needed space to untangle my chaotic thoughts, and a little time to adjust to this massive shift between us. Stepping outside, I found Lin Junxi still waiting. She was sitting on a weathered bench downstairs, huddled under a thin coat, clearly having kept a lonely vigil all through the night. Seeing me leave, Lin Junxi stood up and walked over. Her face was pale with exhaustion, yet she wore a smile of pure relief. So, you are heading out. I gave a small nod and whispered, yeah, thank you for everything. Don't mention it. Lin Junxi shook her head, pulling a worn notebook from her bag to hand to me. This belongs to you. It was written for your eyes only when you returned but didn't reach out. He threw this diary away in a rage, but I couldn't watch it be destroyed, so I secretly saved it and kept it safe until today. I reached out, my fingers trembling as I took it. The cover was frayed and worn. I have decided to leave this town for good. Lin Junxi gazed at the distant horizon, her voice remarkably calm. In this place, there are too many ghosts of Jingxing, and too much of my own bitterness and regret. By leaving this place behind, perhaps I can finally find closure and start a brand new life. I saw her off at the station. Returning home, I cautiously began to flip through the diary. On the very first page, a single line was written, to my little migratory bird, the only true love of my life, Tinglan. The diary chronicled his soul. One entry from 9 years ago read, saw Tinglan's latest video today. She traveled to Dali, to the butterfly spring. I desperately want to go there with her once more. During his grueling university years, he wrote about his struggles, how he wanted to give up on everything and just come find me. But he was paralyzed by terrified I wouldn't want him back, or that I had already moved on and he would just be a burden. Yet, watching my videos online and seeing me happy gave him the strength to keep going. I read on in silence through the night, only closing the diary as the first light of dawn broke. In that moment, all my lingering doubts and hesitations completely vanished. 2 days later, Pei Jingxing had fully recovered. The very first thing he did was head to the hospital for a final, thorough checkup on my father. Once it was done, he walked over to me. Do not worry, your father is stable and doing well. We just have to watch for a relapse, so expect me to drop by your house quite often to check on his health and steal a few moments with you. I feigned a protest. Stop talking nonsense. Who said I wanted you over? Just focus on taking care of my dad, okay? My father watched us from his bed, a look of pure relief and happiness on his face. Over the next few days, I received a fresh bouquet of flowers every single morning, all from Pei Jingxing. Sometimes they were my favorite bright sunflowers, and other times elegant white lily. Every evening, he made sure to take me out, holding my hand as we strolled through those familiar streets, soaking in the cool night breeze while talking about all the years we lost. Tinglan, Pei Jingxing whispered, stopping in his tracks to face me. I want to do everything for you that I failed to do during those long, lonely years. I want to travel with you to every corner of the world, return to Dolly's butterfly spring, and walk the halls of our old high school once more. I want to heal every single one of your regrets and shower you with my absolute devotion. Tinglan, we have lost so much time, but as long as we hold on to each other, it is never too late. Pei Jingsheng's confession sent warmth straight to my soul. Gazing into his deeply sincere eyes and feeling his warm palm, my heart overflowed with raw emotion. Since I had resolved to take this step, bury the ghosts of the past, and give us both one last chance, I refused to shrink back in fear ever again. I would no longer let hesitation hold me hostage. I offered a small, meaningful nod, my voice soft yet firm. Okay. Pei Jingxing pulled me into a fierce, tight embrace. Thank you, Tinglan. Thank you for having the courage to give me another chance, and for not giving up on me. I leaned against him, gently patting his back. We have both lost far too much. From now on, we won't let another moment slip away. A month later, my father was finally discharged from the hospital. On that day, I prepared a feast and invited Pei Jingxing over for dinner. This was the first time I had ever formally invited him home, and the first time I was willing, in front of everyone, to openly acknowledge the deep bond between us. After the meal, as my father and aunt chatted in the living room, I led Pei Jingxing onto the balcony. The sun was setting, bathing us in a magnificent golden glow. The distant sky was painted in soft hues of orange and crimson, a beautiful sight. I pulled out that 13-year-old letter and my phone. Pei Jingxing, I finally received your letter and your messages. They arrived incredibly late, 13 years late, but I have finally seen them. For 13 years, I lived with such deep regret and remorse. I have been drowning in regret for lacking the courage to tell you the truth, for abandoning the sacred promise we once shared, and for every second I was not by your side to support you through your darkest, most agonizing days. For a long time, I believed there was no hope left for us. But Jingxing, I refuse to let us slip away again, and I cannot bear to make you wait another second. I want a fresh start with you. I want us to finally fulfill the vows we made all those years ago. Pei Jingxing tenderly clasped my hand, his thumb tracing the faded scar on my wrist. I have been waiting for this moment for 13 agonizing years, an entire 13 years. There were no grand, explosive confessions, and no flashy ceremonies, just like back in high school. A single look and a quiet promise were enough to bind our souls. We did not need a mountain of words. Our silence spoke volumes, and the raw kindness and devotion in our eyes was the most sincere confession we could ever offer. Half a year later, I am still pursuing my passion as a travel photographer, but with a constant companion by my side. Whenever Pei Jingxing is off duty, he travels with me to every corner of the world for my shoots. My lens now captures more than just landscape, as it captures the two of us, finally together. Every photograph is a permanent record of our shared warmth and bliss. We eventually returned to our old high school, stepping back into the classroom where it all began, sitting in our original desks, one behind the other. Sunlight filtered through the lush leaves of the plane trees, dappling our skin with golden light and creating a shimmering mosaic. It felt exactly like that sweltering summer 13 years ago. The cicadas were buzzing their frantic song, and the sun was glowing. We were still the same people, yet we had evolved into so much more. I leaned my head against Pei Jingxing's sturdy shoulder, gazing out at the ancient plane trees beyond the window with a content smile on my lips. Dr. Pei, I am looking forward to our future together. Pei Jingxing squeezed my hand tightly, turning to find my brow and pressing a gentle, lingering kiss against it. His voice was thick with adoration and love. My dear, please walk with me for the rest of our lives. A gentle breeze swept through the air, carrying the crisp fragrance of the plane trees and bearing witness to a love that arrived 13 years late, now soft and complete. Everything we lost, the regrets, and the agonizing pain have finally faded into the past. In the days to come, we will cherish every heartbeat, loving each other with everything we have, never to be torn apart. Never again will we let our fate slip away.